Webheads, we got Venom, we have Thor, we have Iron Fist issue 1, all this and more on this week's episode of After the Poll. Fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. I'm your host, Mike Spider Slayer, always helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy. This is the video series where I take some of my most highly anticipated comics and I see if they live up to the hype, and I do a top 5 countdown for the top 5 books. And this may not be my definitive 5, because I still have more books to read for the rest of the week. And if you want to find out what my true top 5 comics are for the week, you can tune into my live stream that happens every Tuesday night, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time. It's called Comic Book Weekly, where I team up with a couple of buddies of mine, Brant and Kat, and we talk about the news of the week. We talk about our top 5 comics of the week. We answer you guys' questions. It's a fun late night live stream, so hopefully you guys can join us and again find out what my true and my friends' top 5 comics are of the week. So guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into this week's episode of After the Poll, and we're gonna kick off this countdown with number 8. Yes, I read 8 books so far already, so we got a pretty lengthy video ahead for you. And just to let you know, there might be spoilers, or there probably will be spoilers, so if you haven't read your books, read your books first and then come back and watch this video. So we're gonna kick this bad boy off with Venom issue 5. This book is a disappointment for me. I have never been so disappointed in a Venom book in such a long time. Being that Eddie Brock is King in Black is one thing. Being that he's in this weird garden place is another. And you know, I should have known better when Al Ewing was taking over this book. He did some weird stuff with the Immortal Hulk, but for some reason with Immortal Hulk, it worked. Everything else that he writes, I'm just not a huge fan of. And he takes everything to this cosmic and beyond level, right? And this issue was no different. Now, when it comes to the artwork in this book, it's not bad. I mean, it's pretty good. The only thing I don't like is how slender Eddie Brock looks, and he's a much more beefier guy. We do get all these different other symbiotes. We get, the newest symbiotic creature, which is by the name of Bedlam. So it's okay, looking artwork. But when it comes to this book, again, I'm just disappointed. So on this chapter of the book, we got Al Ewing back into it, and we find out what's going on with Eddie Brock. He's brought to this garden. And we find out that he's not the only King in Black. So, of course, Al Ewing has got to take it to the whole other level where now there's multiple King in Blacks. And now it feels like Donny Cates's run on Venom is just kind of, it's not so special anymore, because when you saw Null and he was the King in Black, it made it feel like this true evil, right? And now you got multiples, and you got this other new dude who's a King in Black, and it seems like he wants the Venom symbiote, and he's tricking the symbiote to bond with Dylan, because you get to see what happened back in the hotel since issue 1 or 2 on like his plans with certain things. It's just weird. It's just a weird ass book, and you get that explanation, and I'm not digging it. It's just very boring. It's a lot of exposition. You got symbiotes just standing around, and you just get to know that this guy, this dude, whatever his name is, he's just a bad guy, right? And it's kind of like, yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away. Nothing special here, nothing exciting, just very boring, and I'm just not into it, man. I loved Donny Cates's run. It seemed like something at stake, and this just doesn't. It's just, hey, we're gonna make Eddie Brock go even further away from Earth and his son and everything else. I don't know. Not for me. I'm probably going to continue it because I have so many issues of Venom and I kind of want to see where the direction goes. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend this, guys. Coming in at number 7 in this week's episode of After the Poll, we have Rain issue 2. This has dropped quite a bit for me. Last time I read it, it was number 1, and I was I wouldn't say I was a little bit disappointed, but I wanted a little bit more from this book. Now, if you didn't read issue one was really well done because we wound up getting to see our main character. Her name is Honeysuckle, which is a totally weird name, and her girlfriend was coming in to move in with her, right? All of a sudden, this crazy storm comes out of nowhere. It rains needles from the sky. It's like crystal nails, and it kills a ton of people in the community. There's all these crystals all over the place. Her girlfriend winds up dying. Honeysuckle survives, and you're just kind of left like, wow. And the narration in the book was really good. The character development was really good, even though you knew all these characters were going to die, because she's telling you how the event happened before it actually happened in the comic book. So it was really well done, that first issue. Now, the artwork might not be for everybody. I think it's kind of an acquired taste, but it's fine. It kind of sets the tone. It gives it its own feel to the book. And in this issue, though, it was more of a setup. You get to see the horrific thing that happened in first issue. But in this issue now, it's like, okay, I want to travel to Denver, Colorado. My girlfriend's dead. Her mother's dead. Her father's still alive. I can't seem to get a hold of him. So I want to try to find him to let him know what happened to his wife and his daughter. So she can't drive. She can't go anywhere. And she has to travel on foot. So as soon as she travels on foot and goes, towards the city, problems start to happen, right? She runs into some weird religious cult group, and then some MMA guy comes and actually fights by her side, and it looks like they're going to travel to Denver together, right? And that was the issue. So it wasn't a bad story, right? It just wasn't as strong as that first issue. It really made an impact on me. And this one was just more of a setup issue. So I'm hoping things amp up a little bit more as issue 3 comes out. This is only a 5-issue miniseries. If you're looking for something different, though, to read, try this one out. You might like it. Just a little bit slower issue here on issue 2. Coming in at number 6 on this week's episode, we have Nightwing issue 89. Now, this book does fall a little bit lower on my list because it's crossing over with Superman. Now, I'm always all good for crossing over with your titles, especially if you write Superman or you write Nightwing and you want them to interact with each other. But this book just got done dealing with Fear State. And in the last issue, we kind of got things a little bit back on track when it came to the main title or to the main story when it came to Nightwing. And now we're interrupting that story again to deal with a crossover with Superboy. Usually, again, I wouldn't have a problem. It's only one issue, but you're interrupting the flow of the comic, and that drives me crazy. And you're like kind of forcing people to be like, you know what? I want to read now. If I want to find out what's going on in this story, I have to read Superman, Son of Kal-El as well. So I don't know. It wasn't really my thing. Now, when it comes to the artwork in this book, we have our usual artist on here, and it's always good. I love the way the characters look. The action scenes in the book are really good. There's a couple of good scenes where we get Dick in there in bed with Barbara, and then he winds up waking up by Helix. I think that's the robot's name or whatnot. So there's some really good scenes. There's always some funny Easter eggs, like Barbara's wearing a Teen Titans Go t-shirt, and I thought that was kind of cool. So there's always great artwork to look at in this book. Now, when it came to this story, it just was mediocre for me. It was just like, oh, let's have a book that teams up with Son of Kal-El and have Nightwing go to Metropolis because there was a Titan that died and he has to go investigate. But at the same time, he's got to make sure that John is okay because his father is out in space and he has a tough time dealing with stuff. It's an emotional comic, right? I give it that. But it takes away from the main story, and it's not what I want to read. I've been reading Nightwing because of the great character interactions between the Bat family that happens in the book. I like the relationship between Dick and Barbara. And Tim Drake makes his appearance in here every once in a while. And I want to know what's going on with Heartless and him, trying to rebuild Bloodhaven. That's what this book is so good. And when you constantly writes something else that has nothing to do with the main story and it interrupts the flow, what's going to happen is people are going to drop off the book. They're like, what's Tom Taylor's initiative here, right? Is it to write the story, the main story, or is it to cross over with his other properties, right? So that I might be a little bit harsh on that, but I love Tom Taylor and I just want him to write this Nightwing book. Don't worry about it interacting with so many other characters like Superman and Teen Titans and the Suicide Squad characters that he wrote and all this other stuff, right? Focus on Nightwing. That's all I want. Not a bad story, but I don't think I'm going to buy Superman Son of Kal-El just to finish this 2-issue crossover thing. All right, now we officially kick off the top 5, and my number 5 book for this week's episode of After the Poll goes to a really fun book, right? This one goes to the Saturday morning adventures of G.I. Joe. This book was so much fun, right? It's sad that IDW is going to lose the properties for this, but I really enjoyed this book. This is straight from the Saturday morning cartoon. I'm an 80s kid. I always watched G.I. Joe, Transformers, like back to back all the time. When you look at the artwork in this book, it is so well done. You gotta love the way the characters look. If you watch the show in the 80s, this book is spot on. It is so good, man. I loved seeing the artwork in this book. And the great thing about this is they treat it like an episode of G.I. Joe. Not only do you get a story, but you also get a kid that might not do something right. And then here comes a Joe, and he sits there and gives them the PSA of the day. And he sits there and then he goes, you know, and now I know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe! Like, you get that in this issue. And I was like, that's freaking awesome. So now that I praised on the artwork and the personal service announcement of the day, what was this story about? Well, the story was just like a cartoon, right? I mean, you get Cobra Commander in here. He gets Sartan and the Dreadnoughts, and he winds up recovering this lamp. And he rubs the lamp, and he gets this crazy genie that comes out of it, and he grants him 3 wishes. And right away, Cobra Commander is sitting there going, I want ultimate power, you know? And the genie's like, I can't do that. That's not a wish, right? So he's like, you gotta ask for something. So Cobra Commander winds up actually wishing for some giant robot army. So he activates the bats. The robots, if you remember what they are, they kind of look like this. So that's the way they look, right? So he activates these gigantic bats and he sets them upon the Joes, and the Joe's got to stop them. And then he comes up with this huge ass ransom at the end. I want $1 billion or I'm going to destroy all these major corporations, right? And that's the issue. It's just fun. This is just comic books at, you know, why you read comic books when you were a kid. It's like, yes, you know, just fun, great artwork. You don't take it too seriously. And yeah, if you're a G.I. Joe fan, dude, I would definitely recommend this book. Coming in at number 4, guys, this goes to Iron Fist issue 1. Now, there's a lot of speculation surrounding this book when it comes to who the new Iron Fist was. I think a lot of people guessed right, and if you did, congratulations on that. So your new Iron Fist is Lin Lee, which I think is fine. And when it comes to this comic book, I know people were bent out of shape about Danny not being Iron Fist anymore. And, you know, Marvel is on this agenda of making sure that we have, you know, a Chinese person that knows martial arts. Whatever their agenda is, fine, whatever, go for it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for just the story, and if it really entertains me, and I don't get caught up in that stuff. And I try to stay away from that as much as I can. I just kind of look into the stories on seeing if the story is going to entertain me or not. So if you're asking me about stereotypes and how Marvel deals with that, you come to the wrong channel for that. I'm here for entertaining stories and artwork, okay? So when it comes to this book, we get the story, a little bit of Lin Lee and how he became the Iron Fist. Is it a clear origin story? Not so much. You're going to have to go back issue diving when it comes to finding out this character's history. I don't know too much about it, but I felt it did an adequate job at giving you an idea of who he was, right? He was once the sword master. He has this sword. It's like Mjolnir. It gives him powers, and it protects him against these dark beings and stuff like that. And the sword wound up shattering, and what happens is it shattered and it got into his arms, and now he can't control the chi. He actually fell from this cliff when he was doing a previous battle, and the Fist of Kunlun wound up going into his body, and somehow he became the new Iron Fist, right? So you get that. You get kind of a little bit of a weak telling of how he became this and why he became this. I really don't know. The artwork in this book was actually pretty good. We get to see a cool pinup page here. Some of the battle scenes were, a little wonky. There were some weird facial expressions. I think they were kind of going for a manga type of feel when it comes to the artwork in this book, but it worked fine for me. So there is a lot of dialogue in this issue, but again, it's kind of catching you up of what's going on with our main character here, right? So his goal, his objective is to put together this sword so he is protected against demons, right? My issue that I had with this book is that Danny is in this book, and somehow, some way, we wind up getting Iron Fist and Danny coincidentally do battle against this demon, and I don't know. And this new Iron Fist doesn't want his help, and Danny knows a thing or two about being Iron Fist, and he keeps running away from him. So maybe he's afraid of spilling the beans to Danny. Maybe he doesn't want to admit that he wants help. But I found that a little bit awkward, right? And then in the second half of this book, there was just a lot of explanation and just unnecessary dialogue. But I did find the book interesting enough to continue this series. And again, this is a good jumping on point, I feel, for people that have never read a Iron Fist book. So if you're a younger audience, this book could be for you. And hey, congratulations, you got a new Iron Fist on your hands. Coming in at number 3 on this week's countdown, we have Hulk issue 4. Now, let me tell you, this book may lack on some storytelling or slow pacing story. And sometimes as a reader, you may drop it because you feel like, the story's not going anywhere. But what it lacks in some storytelling, it makes up for the artwork. This book is such a visual treat, and you love seeing what's going on. So if you're a Ryan Ottley fan, you're going to love this book, because this book is right up his wheelhouse. This reminds me of what he's done in Invincible, when there's a lot of fighting and there's a lot of gore. And for instance, you get to see this in this issue where you see Cyclops' head blown off. I mean, I was like, wow, that is crazy. You get to see just a lot of fighting. You get to see gamma blood all over the place. And again, right up Ryan Ottley's wheelhouse here. So what did this story have to offer this time around? Well, we found out that Thunderbolt Ross is the president of the United States, and he's become a army superpower by using the gamma technology that Bruce Banner has provided for him in this world. And he's trying to track down Banner, Thunderbolt Ross is, and he realizes that he has this Hulk next to his side, and he wants that Hulk, and Hulk wants nothing to do with Thunderbolt Ross, and he goes and he tries to battle all of his little, army people and whatnot. We get to see him ramp up the Hulk, I guess, Enterprise, if you want to call that, or Starship, and you get to see all these crazy battles and him fighting all these army soldiers and whatnot. So desperate times comes for desperate measures, and what happens is Thunderbolt Ross drops a very dangerous weapon that he has at his disposal to fight the Hulk, and his name is Peter. So as the reader, you are anxiously awaiting what this last cliffhanger is going to be like, right? Because you see him drop, all the other army people run away. You see him drop from a plane. So I'll show you that right here, right? And then you come across this ultimate Spider Hulk. And it looks so hilarious. I was like, oh my God. And he's like 50 times the size of Hulk himself. So Hulk has a formidable foe to go against in the next issue. So when it comes to this book, if you're looking for some in-depth story plot, like I would say crossover, or even Thor, or even King in Black, it doesn't look like you're going to get it in this book. It looks like you're just going to get more Hulk smash and fighting type of stuff. I know a lot of people out there are saying, you know, this is not for me. This is not the Hulk I know about, Hulk smashing things. But it kind of is, though. Yes, Hulk is in a different persona, right? But he's doing more smashing and destroying than any book that I have ever seen in quite a while in Hulk, right? So for that instance, I gotta give Donny Cates that credit. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes from here. Coming in at number 2, we have Thor issue 22. This is the penultimate issue when it comes to the story arc God of Hammers. Yes, this is part 4 of 5. A very well told story here, let me tell you. Now, this story just feels very epic. There's a lot at stake, especially when it comes to the end of this issue on what happens to Odin and what happens to Thor. I mean, you're kind of like, holy crap. And it's very familiar, has a feel kind of like, I want to say King in Black by the time you get done with this. You know how Eddie Brock got powered up to defeat Null at the end of his story, right? Well, this happens in Thor as well, and I'll explain in a little bit. But when it comes to the artwork in this book, I always love Nick Klein's artwork. It's so well done. Look at this opening page. As you get to see Beta Ray Bill come through the portal, getting ready to defend his friend, to help him win. You get this gate or whatnot, and you get a lot of narration in here of what has happened to try to catch the reader up and update certain things. And you wind up learning more about the hammer, about why it's teamed up with Mangog, and how Thor has betrayed the hammer, right? And where the hammer's power came from, and how Odin trapped the power in the hammer. Very interesting theories and whatnot. So I really enjoyed that. So this book is kind of opposite from Hulk, right? There's a lot of in-depth storytelling in here. A lot of mythology where Hulk is just plain out Hulk smash, right? So as this story goes along, you wind up seeing desperate times comes for desperate measures. And this is a huge spoiler, so if you don't want to hear this spoiler, just plug your ears and shut your eyes for a minute. But Odin basically dies in this book, okay? Well, actually, he does die. And in order for Thor to get his true power, Odin must die and pass on his power to Thor. And then what happens to Thor is he basically becomes like Super Saiyan Thor, and he's like all jacked up and powered up and ready to go to defeat his own hammer and Mangog, right? So that's what happens in this book. So yeah, always a lot at stake when it comes to Thor. I really enjoyed it. Like I say, though, I see the similarities between King in Black in this story arc. But still, I really enjoyed this book, and I definitely recommend it. Coming in at number 1, this one goes to the Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue 89. Guys, I am a huge fan of this book. 1, I love this new Queen Goblin character. 2, Black Cat's in the book, so I can't deny that, right? And 3, you got Mark Bagley artwork. So that's a win-win-win all the way around for me. And I think Mark Bagley had a lot of fun drawing the Queen Goblin character. You know what Mark Bagley's artwork looks like. It's always really well done. He is just that staple Spider-Man artist for years and years. This book had a lot to offer. First, you wind up getting to see a little bit of an introduction of the Queen Goblin character, on how they did the experiment on her, on Dr. Kafka, on how they injected Norman Osborn's sin. And right away, she becomes this evil goblin character, right? So she's a very formidable foe right from the start. And she's just pure evil. And you get to see a little bit more of what her weapons can do. Like, you learn about her mace. You learn about her power that she has, which is called the Goblin Gaze. So it reminds you a little bit of like Ghost Rider in a way, where she'll look into your eyes, dig deep into your soul, pull out all your negative thoughts that have happened into your life. She amplifies them and basically makes you do harm to yourself, like maybe commit suicide or whatever the case may be. And you get to witness that because she does that to Felicia in this book, right? The great thing about this book, though, that made it so special was because Black Cat took it upon herself to take out the goblin character, and she forced Peter Parker to stay in bed. Peter wanted nothing to do with that. He knows his history with the goblins in general, and he felt that he needed to go out there and help. And you find out that someone freed him from the bed because Felicia webbed him to the bed so he wouldn't escape. And he comes out and he saves the day. He saves Felicia's life, and he's earns his costume back to where he is going to do battle against the Queen Goblin. And I loved it because there he earned his stripes again to call himself Spider-Man. There was no Ben Reilly to be found in this book. He's missing, so they got to find him and stop Queen Goblin at the same time. Phenomenal job here. I think Patrick Gleason is the one that actually wrote this book. Yes, he did a great job in the storytelling here. Finally, this Beyond story means something. It took a brand new villain to get to that point, for it to get to that point. And it was a great read. I definitely recommend this. If you guys want to jump on issue 88, the first appearance of this, read issue 89, then read issue 90. These are the ones that are worth reading. There you have it, webheads. There are my top 5 so far. Will that hold up? We'll find out Tuesday night and see, because I still got half my books to read, but I don't know if anything is going to beat that Amazing Spider-Man comic. So guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell. Speaking of content, I'll leave you with more content right here, which is my comic book haul. It'll show you all the great stuff that I picked up for this past comic book week. Guys, keep buying, keep collecting, and most importantly, keep reading those comics. Fans, I'll see you soon.